Welcome to Energising Life with AKR Fitness. I'm Jase, your host, and as always, I'm joined by Mike.
Hello.
And Lynsey.
Hello.
And we've made it to episode 3.
We're back.
We're back. So welcome back to the listeners and viewers. In the first episode, we introduced ourselves. In the second episode, we spoke about energy is everything, and this notion of fitness generates life's energy. We also touched upon that we were wondering why many people didn't try it more or get into it. But in fact, many people have tried. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Is this the biggest problem in fitness that we see is this stop-start cycle. So, Mike, many people have tried fitness. Where does it all go wrong?
Yeah, well, it's all or nothing, isn't it? And I think that encapsulates one of the biggest problems in fitness is perfectionism, or we touched on it before, like the expectation of what it's meant to be, and people go too hard and they burn out fast, and they blame their burnout not on their approach but on their character, on their lack of willpower or discipline. And so they resolve to try even harder and be even more disciplined on Monday.
Better and stricter.
And the cycle goes on and on and on. And, you know, I've certainly been through it myself, and I'm sure we'll talk about some of that today.
Yeah. I think if you listen to the first episode, you'll realise that I did have this aggressive all or nothing approach to things. And it was like that all through sort of, maybe until I got to AKR. It was just, I'm doing this, I'm going into this, I'm doing this, I'm learning this. And then, you know, when I hit that first hurdle, maybe I'll just try this other thing instead, or, well, this is a better approach, I'll go for this. So, yeah, definitely, I've been there. I know you've been there, right? Yeah, how many times we're going to get into your paleo at some point, are we?
Yeah, well, now, I guess.
Let's go. I mean, we can battle back and forth in this. I was keto.
Yeah, I don't know, like, what it is, if how much is the sort of diet and fitness industries, and how much is human nature of the way we tackle things. But in my own experience, there was a time, you know, probably 2008, 9, 10, around that period, where I was getting into this paleo diet. And for me, you know, as I said, I came into fitness through football and trying to improve my performance, as opposed to a lot of people get into it from like a physique, or young lads and bodybuilders or things like that.
Just quickly, just for those who know, what is a paleo diet? Just a quick brief.
Well, I'll get to it as I go, I think. In short, Stone Age sort of diet.
I remember it well. I remember it well.
Phase,
I do, yeah.
Yeah, well, so for me, aesthetics were there. I'm not going to lie. Like, you know, trying to have a six pack and all that sort of stuff. But it was just, for me, I was like becoming more and more a health freak, and the paleo diet at the time really felt like a good fit for where I was. You know, it was like eat from nature, and it just seemed to make so much sense, and it seemed scientific. And I think that's the trouble with a lot of these things. It's pseudoscience, so you think it all makes sense. And for me at the time, I was reading paleo books, listening to paleo podcasts, and living in this world, you know.
You were fully immersed in it at the time.
That was your bubble at the time.
An echo chamber, if you will. Yeah. So it's just everything reinforces what you believe. And so the paleo diet is based on like living how we've evolved, or eating how we've evolved to live. So what did hunter-gatherer men and women eat 10,000 years ago? And okay, so I'm only going to eat plants and animals effectively. And the problem is, like, for me, the stricter and the more pure I tried to get, the more problems I had. So it ends up in this sort of restrict binge cycle. So the minute I have a piece of chocolate, or, you know, something that wasn't paleo, that wasn't allowed in, and as I'm speaking here, you can substitute paleo for any other diet.
Well, yeah, look, if I substituted, I was keto, which is a no carb at all style. I think it was like 5 grams or something you're allowed per day. So it's just a few vegetables, eating super high fat. I would only ever eat like minced cheese, tuna, mayo.
Yeah, and the thing is, the minute you break your diet, it goes off track. So there's this sort of scarcity concept. So like, let's say chocolate's not allowed in my diet, but now I have a piece of chocolate. Yeah. So I've ruined today. The perfect record is ruined.
That's the mentality, isn't it?
That's it.
That's
That's
the
the key
mentality.
word. It's that perfectionism.
But then tomorrow, I'm back on track, and there's no chocolate. So then there leaves this window of today where it's already ruined, and either consciously or subconsciously, you'd be as well fill your boots. You'd be as well eat all the chocolate today because you're back on strict tomorrow. And that's what happens. And so for me, every time I strayed and I had a bit of chocolate, I couldn't stop myself eating more and more. So then it's like, I'm addicted to this stuff. You know, and if you wouldn't tell an alcoholic to have one beer and then stop, you would say you have to abstain. And so that was the stage where I was at. I was like, I just can't eat this stuff. But it just got the more rigid, the more strict I got, the harder and harder, you know, the more the binges were, the worse thing became. And
What was the time period of that? Like from when you started just getting into paleo until you realised, I'm not in a great place here with food?
I don't know, but I would say that I was probably struggling with my relationship with food for the best part of a decade because of it. And again, just to reinforce this point for the listener, it's you think, or I thought, you know, and I've seen it with loads of people we've worked with since, they think that the answer is to be even stricter. And actually that just compounds the problem the harder you go. And you know, I'm talking diet right now, but this is where people are with fitness at whole. You know, it's stop start because it's all or nothing, and it's perfectionism.
It's putting too much into it. You're going 110%, and at one point you're going to fall off. And if you fall off, you know, for a day, you beat yourself up, and then diet starts on Monday, we'll go again, and it just seems to be forever. Stop start. It never ends.
Cycle upon cycle upon cycle.
Yeah, and I think the main thing is because when you fall off track, you blame yourself as opposed to the approach. You know, so for me, never eating, you know, man-made food again is not a realistic approach, right? Never having chocolate or sweets or whatever it is not a realistic approach. But what I thought is I just need to be more disciplined.
Yeah.
You know?
But then it gives you more rules and more restrictions that you break quicker or more easily because there's more of them, and then the cycle begins again.
And the other thing, I forgot what I was going to say there. I had another good point in that. It'll come back to me.
It sounds exhausting anyway.
You know what? It is, and because you're always seeking perfection, not only like is it exhausting in terms of, you know, trying to do extra research into other options available, but like mentally you keep stumbling upon this. I keep failing. It's me. When really, like you said, it's the approach just isn't right.
Yeah, well, I think that's what you're talking about. Exhausting is, so the irony is that's a very short-term view, and that's part of the problem. But the exhausting part is doing that repeatedly. Like I was keeping a journal, and I was, you know, this is how the pattern goes. You pick some arbitrary date in the future, like, I don't know, there's some night out, some event, some holiday, some whatever, and you think, right, it's 6 weeks or 8 or 10, whatever, until that date. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn over a new leaf, start fresh, I'm going to be super strict, and I'm, you know, cast a vision of how amazing it's going to be on that date. But what you're doing there is actually, they call it false hope syndrome. You're just building, you feel bad in the moment, you know, but you're doing that to build yourself up and think, but here's the plan. And it got to a point for me, in my journal, I was like, this must be like the 20th time I've done the same thing, and it never goes anywhere. Yeah,
I often got the same thing within the 6 weeks. So within that 6 weeks, like, right, I've got this. I'm knuckling down a weekend or the first hurdle. You're like, okay, right, okay, now I've got
start.
I'm gonna do this. I've got 5 weeks, so it's just the same.
And you just keep moving the end date.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like the big important thing that was at the end of May is now, well, actually, there's something at the end of June instead, right? Mm-hmm. But I remember what I was going to say before, and I think this is part of it as well, especially if we're talking about nutrition, is rules are easier. It's far easier to say, right, here's what I eat and here's what I don't eat, than it is to say, I'll eat enough of this and then stop. You know, I'll to try and figure out what the right amount and be in this experimental, listening to your body is harder than just like what's black and white.
Yeah.
And I think that's
what the majority of people do, is they've got this strict view on it. It's all or nothing. They're fantastic through the week. They get to the weekend, they're starving. They're like, oh, I know, I'll just have this pizza, I'll have this or that. And the next thing, it's Monday again, and we go again. And it's the same idea.
Yeah, well, I used to have a laugh with one of my friends where it's like a realization. And so dieters use the terms good and bad. Like I've been good this week.
Yeah.
And I've been bad. And there's a realization that what if the good weeks cause the bad weeks? So, for example, the people who start Monday and they're scraping by on, a cup of soup and a yogurt and a bite of an apple or whatever their strict version of dieting is.
Yeah.
Plus they're doing their exercise, they're trying to take up running, whatever it is. What happens after 5 days of that? You're tired and you're hungry.
Yeah.
So it's inevitable that you're going to blow up at the weekend. You're going to eat all the food that you couldn't eat through the week. Come around Monday, we all know what happens. I'm going to, start over, be stricter.
Yeah. And I don't want to bash the fitness industry, it's the industry we're in, but the fitness industry is based kind of roughly on these short-term fixes. That's how they make their money, right? It's buy this plan, it's do this diet, it's that short-term fix. But fitness isn't short-term.
Yeah, I think part of that, again, how much is it the consumer just looking for a quick fix, and how much is it, okay, here's a diet and thing. Like most diets, like you said, can be written off by saying, am I going to do this forever? And don't get me wrong, there's a place to do something for a shorter period of time. But I think that's one of the biggest problems. We said stop-start cycles, but it's short-termism. Is people think that, eating well or exercise or, doing a health kick is something you do for a few weeks or months to get a result because you're getting married or you're going on your holiday or you're whatever it is. But then there's no...
Yeah, where's the rest of it?
Yeah,
what happens after that?
Yeah, what happens after what happens after that date?
Yeah, and that's why, as we said, it goes on and on and on. And I think the big difference, the thing that people would do well to take on board is this idea that fitness is an infinite game. It was something Simon Sinek has a book called Infinite Game, and he really put it well about this idea of finite and infinite games. So take a football match, it lasts 90 minutes, plus stoppages, and there's a full-time whistle, and there's a winner and a loser. Or
maybe a draw.
Or it's a draw. But there's a result, right?
Yeah, and so there's an end.
And that's how people treat fitness, as we've said, as we've done. 6 weeks till this, and then I'm in shape for my holidays, or whatever it may be. But fitness isn't. It's an infinite game. For as long as you live, you can't complete it. You can't win it. Of course, you can win competitions and things like that, and there can be milestones and peaks and things along the way. But it goes on, and the problem is that most approaches that people gravitate to are things that help in the short term, but work against lasting in the longer term. So in my story, every time you do one of these sort of really rigid approaches or diets or things, you pick up some baggage. Yeah. And that baggage makes it much harder. So I didn't follow a paleo diet for 10 years, but it took me the best part of that decade to sort of resolve all these issues I had around food of a consequence of being strict.
And what sort of things have you done to help you resolve that? Like, is there like tools or things that you've done along the way it's helped, that would help the listener if they're in that same position?
Stop moralizing food. So I think there's a big part of it that's realizing that, foods, there are no good and bad foods.
I always love this. What is good? Like, what is good? What is good?
Yeah.
It's this in general. Like, what is good?
Well, it's context dependent.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
if I've just, and I did, play semi-pro football, if I just played a football match, I'm probably better eating a Mars bar than I am eating, some spinach, for example. So it's all context dependent, and, we're going to spend a future episode talking, specifically on some nutrition steps. Yeah. But I think the main thing is this big realization that fitness is forever. So yes, you can do short-term things.
Which we're going to speak about that in just a minute.
Yeah. Are those things going to be at a consequence of you being able to build fitness in the long term, or maintain a healthy relationship with food and exercise in the long term?
Yeah. So zooming out, and we've got an analogy we use at AKR. I'm going to let you explain it. That it helps develop this consistency, this practice, and also helps put short-termism into it as well. Yeah.
So we call it the bus bench and the park bench, and it's a way of looking at it that we borrowed from strength coach Dan John. And in short, the bus bench represents the short-term approach to fitness. So if you're at a bus stop, you're there for a specific purpose because you've got somewhere you need to go. No one just goes to hang out at the bus stop.
Well, unless you're a youth.
You've been in Purehead.
Park bench, on the other hand, it represents a longer-term approach to fitness where it's not so outcome-orientated. So you don't sit on a park bench to get a result, to go somewhere. You sit there to enjoy the experience. And the problem is that most people hop from bus bench approach to bus bench approach. So short-term, intense, outcome-focused program over and over again without ever learning the skills required to just show up, to just stay on track, to develop a good relationship with food and exercise. And that's why they don't go anywhere, because it's a different set of skills.
Yeah. You've experienced the park bench and bus bench yourself, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about that? And how it differs between the bus and the park for you?
Yeah. So park bench is where I spend the majority of my life, and
Same.
where what we practice and try and teach our members here at AKR Fitness, which is, again, especially because people come in with this stop-start, this all-or-nothing, the perfectionist approach. So we have a mantra here: just show up. If you feel good, you train hard. You put in a good shift. If you don't, you show up, you go through the motions, you tick the box, and you live to fight another day. And I think the key is developing these habits and behaviors and skills required to just do that. So it doesn't need to be perfect. Just do something, And we've got a set of skills around nutrition and, again, the just show up mantra around the gym. Now, for the person who has got, they know what it's like to be in the park bench, they've developed those skills, there is absolutely a place for a bus bench approach, for a short-term program. So the person who, why wouldn't you want to spend 6+ weeks getting in shape for, a wedding for some people, which we know people coming in, it's really important. Or for the person who's engaged in their fitness, but they're looking for something different. They maybe want to train for a marathon. Or, we had a group of members a few years ago it's called the Tactical Strength Challenge here, which was a max deadlift, max number of kettlebell swings in 5 minutes, plus max pull-ups.
Snatches.
What did I say?
Swings.
Sorry, snatches. So deadlift, snatches, and pull-ups, right? Yeah. And so we absolutely did spend like 6 weeks or so in the build-up, focused and training hard for this event and this outcome.
You had to, because if you didn't, you'd fail it.
Yeah, and then after the event, we went back on the park bench. We just showed up. We just enjoy the experience of training. And
I think
like
that's where the magic is, on the park bench, and I think you see it all the time. With members coming in, and people that have been with us for a while understand that. So, for instance, if somebody is coming in for one of our members has a wedding coming up in maybe 6-12 weeks, we'll work with them to help them feel the best version of themselves. But then they're at the top of the peak, and what comes after is a drop. So we hopefully, they've trained with us long enough to understand that, okay, we're just going to bring it back into the park bench and go again, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it's important to add as well is when we do have members engaging in a bus bench approach, we try and stay away from the things that do result in baggage. Mm-hmm. So we're not going to say, right, no carbs for the next whatever. Yeah. It tries to still have a balanced approach. You might be you might be putting forth more effort and more discipline and working harder, after which there's a natural point where you need to back away from that. But when they back away, it's just back to the park bench. It's not like, ooh, angst and all that sort of thing that people are left with when they do these diets.
Extremes.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like notes in music. It's not a continuous screech. You need to take breaks in the music in order to enjoy the tune.
Yeah, exactly. It's not all just bass.
Clatter.
Depend on what you're into.
If Lynsey's got the playlist, it could be a little bit like that.
Yeah.
So I think ultimately what we're saying there is the journey is the goal.
Yeah, exactly. Because even if you've got a shorter term goal, there's still the journey doesn't stop in fitness. So I think most people would be far better served to view fitness as an infinite game. And if I'm going to still be exercising, 10, 15, 20, depending how old you are listening, 30, we spoke before, it's not just a young person's thing.
For me, fitness is just growing old gracefully. It's, still being able to go for a wander if you want to with your loved ones, or, picking up, I was going to say picking up a child, but, picking up a child that is related to, don't just go pick up any child. Hey, there you go, see you now. So, yeah, but just, picking
playing
up
with grandkids.
Yeah, playing with grandkids, or just silly things, like getting things off the top shelf. You have to do a little jump. I mean, I'm virgin on 5'9", so like a little jump to the top shelf to get things. Like, you want to be able to do these things gracefully, and it's also a chance to learn new skills and learn about yourself as well.
I think the big thing as well, though, is it takes so much of the pressure off and a lot of the angst. People, we know people for the best part of their life, for decades and decades, it's been one diet, one health kick to another, every January, every summer holiday, whatever. And back away from it, say, well, do you know what? This is a 30-year health kick.
Yeah.
So it's about sustainability over, it's about consistency over intensity, we sometimes say. It's about showing up today no matter how I feel, and just letting go of all the pressure of needing to fit in a certain box in terms of it, Yeah.
It's like, I like to think of it as being kind to your future self.
Do things today that your future self will thank you for.
Yeah, definitely.
Which, fitness doesn't have to be these massive, intense sessions. It could just be a little bit of movement, like we kind of said before. And it's even just doing that little bit of movement per day builds the consistency. It solidifies that habit.
Well, and the funny thing is, people who take that longer term approach in 6 months from now, or a year from now, whatever, they're going to be they're going to be in a far better place than the person who, lost 10 kilos, put on 12, lost...
Not just physically, but mentally.
They've moved more dirt, if you've listened to previous podcasts, they've moved more dirt rather than, like, if you were moving dirt and I just stopped moving it.
It's not going anywhere.
It's not going anywhere.
But the point is, not only is it better, mentally, emotionally, it's less stress, less angst, but for most people, they'll get better results because, let's go back to when I'm binge eating. You go super strict for a few days and then you destroy your progress. So in the case of, week on week, I'm not actually getting anywhere.
No.
And over a longer period of time, you sicken yourself from it. And so you get worse and worse and worse. So, yeah, it's better all around. I think that's the one message that if I could give to people, it's to treat fitness like an infinite game and start trying to work on skills that are going to serve you, further down the line rather than just on the beach this summer, if you could do that.
Absolutely.
That's allowed.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I think that's a great place to wrap this up. So overall, the message is the journey is the goal, and enjoy the journey. If you've enjoyed this podcast, folks, please give us a like, a review, a 5-star rating. Only do 5-star ratings, do we? 5-star ratings allowed. It'd be much appreciated. Next episode, we're going to talk about managing things that are normal, like the down days, the lack of motivation and things, and just to help keep you on track. So hopefully you'll get some tips and tricks from there. And if you've got anybody who would like this podcast, please feel free to share it with them as well. And we'll see you on the next one.